If Fulshear, Texas has landed on your shortlist of where you'd like to move in 2026, you're not alone. Literally. According to U.S. Census data published in 2025, Fulshear was the #1 fastest growing city in the entire United States. Kind of incredible, right? In this video here today, I'm going to cover what I think you need to know as you consider your move out to the southwest side over in Fulshear, Texas. Hi, I'm Carolyn Bauerschlag, a local real estate agent helping people just like you relocate from all over the country right to our great city. And if you're considering making a move to West Houston, make sure to reach out with the contact information listed below. I would love to add you to our client family. The first and probably most important thing that I think you need to know when moving to Fulshear is what the sentiment is in the area. Now, residents of Fulshear, Texas are kind of against the growth. Fulshear used to be a tiny little sleepy town where you would have to drive maybe 15 to 20 minutes and only go by cow pastures and ranch land before you saw any other kind of civilization. And where we are now is that Katy, Brookshire, Richmond all encroach right onto the territory of Fulshear. And folks that have been there even just 10 years ago, but 15 years ago, are really unhappy about it. Now, I can understand why. If what your goal was to live out in this beautiful gem in the Brazos River Valley of the southwest side of Houston and be undisturbed, everyone has now chosen to disturb you, right? And really in the last 5 years is where I would say this has gotten super significant. Now, it's kind of hard to stop growth, right? Like people are attracted to an area, builders, developers, retail, commercial, everything comes into an area and it's kind of a train that you can't stop. But here's some things to think about in that context. On the anti-growth side of this discussion, what you'll hear original people from Fulshear say is that they moved out here specifically to avoid everybody. And they're deeply disappointed to see things like commercial retailers, national brands that they recognize, fast food joints, restaurants that are from the Darden brand of restaurants like Chili's or Saltgrass Steakhouse make their way out to the Fulshear area. What they say is that they wanted to move out here because they wanted the little mom and pop shops. They wanted a small town that closed down on the weekends. They wanted businesses that they could support with their dollars locally. They wanted that sense of connectedness, not to just hand over all of their money to whatever big box comes their way. And as someone who lives in Katy, Texas, and has driven out to Fulshear every week for 11 years, I understand that sentiment, right? Like we joke here in Katy that you can't drive past a strip center without it having a dry cleaner, an orthodontist, a donut shop, and a tutoring center, right? And it's like, how many of those do you actually need, right? And so I can completely understand what the folks in Fulshear are saying is that they moved often from Katy, right? Just one little neighboring suburb over to get away from that feel, right? So that's one major argument is that it's destroying the small town feel. Now, on the pro side of this discussion, people, especially in municipal sort of roles, will say, well, when the people come, we need a tax base to support the people that are choosing to live here, right? It's not as simple as property taxes to generate enough revenue for a city to function, right? As soon as these people have heard that it's good and they all come out, that population has to be supported. Yes, your property tax dollars pay things like your mud bonds, right? Like you're going to pay off the debt associated with having a storm drain and a sewer system and a gas line and water to your house. But as far as infrastructure goes, paying for a police force, roads, utilities that are ongoing or expansions or commercial developments or whatever the case may be, that has to be supported by commercial real estate too, right? So what these city members will say, the folks that are in charge of approving or declining these growth and these expansion projects, is they say, we have no choice but to bring these businesses here so that they too can contribute to the tax base. So it's a rather complicated discussion. I would say the hotbed that's really being debated right now is a Home Depot that's supposed to go in along the West Park Toll or the bottom side of Fulshear. Or I guess really it's like the main artery of Fulshear. But people are really upset about this. They say, what was wrong with Ace Hardware? What's wrong with getting in your car and driving 15 minutes away to the next Home Depot? And they really do have a point, but this is a really delicate seesaw balance for everyone involved. Now, I will say, kind of funny, but no one was really upset about the Whataburger going in down 1093. That had a line that was wrapped like double around the parking lot for at least a week after it opened. Now, another major important thing that you need to be aware of if you're moving out to the Fulshear area is that the school district is going through a massive expansion. So Lamar Consolidated ISD was able to get voters to approve and pass a $1.99 billion with a B, $1.99 billion bond for the expansion of their school district. Now, this was badly needed. Fulshear, Lamar Consolidated area, all of the little municipalities in the voting base voted down a lot of these bond elections that were proposed over the last several years. And what that did was put a huge strain on the existing schools as the population was growing. So I think in 2025, people realized that denying the growth was no longer a possibility, and voters finally approved to have these bonds issued. So what you're going to see over the next several years is that money being spent on the development of 7 new elementary schools, a new junior high, a new intermediate school, and another high school. There's also going to be more buses, infrastructure, staff, technology, improvements to existing facilities. And basically what that's going to do for you is completely reshuffle the zoning pattern in the Fulshear area, right? And think about how big Fulshear is. It's small, but it's big, right? Like we're talking about on the east side, Cross Creek Ranch. On the west side, we're talking about all the way past Weston Lakes, right? And that's a huge territory. And right now, all of that's really been kind of zoned to Fulshear High School. So as these new high schools open, it's really going to redistribute where everyone goes. And generally speaking, people get very upset about that. So if you're considering a move to Fulshear, you need to be very aware of where that proposed high school is going to be, and also the elementary schools, intermediate and junior high schools as well. But it's going to reshuffle how people's property values appreciate, at least in the short term. I would say as the school becomes more established and as it gains its reputation, its traction, its footing, everything usually levels out and is totally fine. But I would say for the first couple of years, people tend to be pretty upset about that change. Now, as far as timeline goes, when you could expect those changes, I would say it's going to really start to come down the pike in 2027. So make sure that when you're shopping for a home, that your friendly neighborhood realtor, yours truly, helps connect you with the resources that you can use and sort of depend on to see what your best chance is at making sure you attend the school that you're intending to go to. Now, I haven't heard about this specifically in Fulshear, but in other parts of the Lamar Consolidated ISD district, you need to be very aware that they do something called capping, where if too many people move into one area, they don't just overcrowd that school. They'll cap the population of that school and then take students that are newest to the neighborhood and send them to a different elementary school within, let's say, Lamar Consolidated, which naturally you can imagine people would be very upset about. Right. So there's some grandfathering, there's some exceptions to the rule. There's, do you have siblings? Right. It's very circumstantial. So if you are looking at relocating into the Fulshear area, make sure to connect yourself with an expert so that you end up where you intend to be. Now, the third most important thing I think you need to know if you're considering a move to Fulshear, Texas, is that the infrastructure that's being put into place has, in my opinion, been somewhat reactive. Now, this is also kind of brought on by the folks that have been so resistant to the population growth, right? Like if they have a say in where something is going to go in or change, they're resistant to it, right? And it's very practical things like water treatment plants and cell phone towers, right? So cell phone towers, just five of them just got approved by City Council in 2025. And you can understand why people don't like it, right? Texas out this way is very, very flat. You can't really like disguise a several story cell phone tower behind a tree. Like it's just not there, right? And so these are massive towers that are going up and people don't want them in the middle of the ranch land. It is visually obstructive. I get it. But people are moving out and they can't use their cell phones, right? Like that's a huge complaint that people have had about Fulshear is all my calls drop. I have to depend on my internet for internet-based calling, right? And so that's a very practical outcome to modern life is that people had to basically agree on where these cell phone towers are going to go. And it took a while for them to get to that agreement. So I would say in the last year, I have noticed that cell phone coverage has been marginally improved in the Fulshear area. Now, it's always disappointing to see water treatment plants go up, but if they are going to go up, it's better for them, I think, to go along major roads where you don't really want to build like residential real estate anyways, right? So there was a really big one that got built right at the intersection of Texas Heritage Parkway and 1093. And it looked awful. And unfortunately, a Shell gas station now covers that water treatment plant. But I would say you can expect to see more of those pop up as more people move in. It's just a practicality. It has to happen. Now, another thing that Fulshear has done, in my opinion, in a somewhat reactive way, unfortunately, is kind of be haphazard with where they choose to place electrical poles. Now, in a lot of master plan communities, they'll bury the lines so you don't have to look at them or see them every which way that you turn. And it's not uniformly any which way. There are neighborhoods where a lot of them are buried, but you're still going to see kind of like the things that look like a shaved pine tree with a power pole running through it, right? But a lot of what we're looking at is, I think, a reaction to the amount of growth that we've had. So sometimes you'll see like a cluster of like 15 poles with like a power station next to it, and it looks like someone like jerry-rigged it with electrical tape and just a huge tangle of wires. And it's horribly visibly obstructive, in my opinion. Now, it could be that someday they choose to bury those lines, but I would say the way it's been done, it literally looks thrown up, probably because it was. As long as we're talking about infrastructure, we need to talk about roads. Now, roads tend to be less reactive, right? Like people can't just resist roads indefinitely, but we've had a lot of expansion projects going on in Fulshear for several years. The first is going to be the West Park Toll expansion, or otherwise known as 1093. 1093 was the farm road, and then West Park Toll is the monetized version that kind of runs alongside that. The West Park Toll expansion is almost done. This has been going on for several years now, but you can now pay a toll to get all the way past the Grand Parkway, further west towards Spring Green. So you can bypass that huge intersection at 1463 and 1093 where you used to lose years off your life. You can bypass that and now go all the way to Spring Green. Now, that expansion is going to continue, and it's supposed to continue all the way to 359, or what was kind of the original intersection of Fulshear, Texas. That expansion project is supposed to wrap up, I would say, sometime at the end of 2026, which is very far ahead of schedule. Now, again, the original folks at Fulshear are not happy to see this expansion because it now runs as an elevated road over what was just the farm road 1093, right? So the beautiful entrances of a lot of neighborhoods like Cross Creek Ranch, like Lakes of Bellaterra, all the way out towards Fulshear have a giant overpass running directly in front of it, right? So you are losing, in essence, some of that feel of the country, but it's an inevitability, unfortunately. And the last little bit of infrastructure news I have for you, you've probably seen before if you've watched any of my other videos, is that the 1463 expansion, or the artery that runs on the east side of Fulshear between 1093 and I-10, is an ongoing construction nightmare. Now, some folks will tell you that this was probably a huge lapse in judgment for whoever hired this construction company. From what I understand, the comptroller, the Fort Bend County people involved, hired someone who was the lowest bidder for this particular project, and they did not approve or consider the fact that you would need a switch lane during construction. So what that means is that you lose years off your life trying to traverse 1463. But on a more serious note, it's not just about the amount of time that it's taken for this construction project to complete. As they've shut down sections for construction, they've barricaded or blocked a lot of the egress and ingress into businesses, which has had an effect both with the economy factors, but also with just physical blockades, has had the effect of putting some folks out of business. A lot of folks are very, very much wanting this to wrap up, but I would say reasonably, you've got at least another 18 months, if not 2 years, for 1463 expansion to be complete. The last thing that I want to share with you about Fulshear that I think you need to know is that the retail out that way is expanding. Now, I'm going to start with my favorite type of retail, which is, of course, an H-E-B. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I love that grocery store. And it's not just because it's the best grocery store in the United States. It is because H-E-B does not put a store on the ground if they don't believe that the expansion, the longevity, the wonderful nature of the community around it to thrive over time. These guys are super savvy and they have deep deep pockets. So when you see an HEB go into an area, it is basically the Houstonian equivalent to saying you've made it, right? So we have HEBs now on the east side of Fulshear, right on 1463. And that one, I would say, was the first huge win for that area. So that HEB really supports Cross Creek Ranch. There is another HEB that's on Spring Green and 1093. Spring Green is not really Fulshear. It's on your way to Fulshear, but that was another big win. And it's rumored that there is another HEB that's supposed to go in somewhere around the intersection of 359 and 1093. So that would be somewhere right around the entrance of Fulbrook on Fulshear Creek. Now, whether or not that one's true, I don't really know. But if that were to go in, that would be a huge win for the Fulshear population. Now, with respect to other retail, as I mentioned earlier in this video, there are still plenty of mom and pop shops like cute boutiques, cute little restaurants, small proprietor businesses here and there. People were upset when the Saltgrass Steakhouse went in. That used to be a restaurant that was owned by a very famous restaurateur in the area. And that was kind of like a knife in the heart to a lot of Fulshear folks when the Saltgrass moved in instead. But the good news is that restaurateur did move further out towards Simonton, which is further past Fulshear. So everyone's favorite restaurant in the Fulshear area is probably going to be called Anthony's. So if you Google that, you'll see Anthony's is prime dining in that area. Now, the last big major retail expansion that's happening out in the Fulshear area, it's not really Fulshear, but it's there, is going to be along the Texas Heritage Parkway corridor as you get towards I-10. So we would probably call this more Brookshire-like because it's closer to I-10, but this is Fulshear adjacent, so I wanted to bring it up. The Texas Heritage Marketplace is being built by a massive commercial developer called New Quest Properties. And they've already broken ground, construction's underway, and a huge slew of anchors have already announced that they have leased space. So there's going to be a Target, a Sam's Club, a Lowe's, little restaurants and chains have been announced as well. If you like Cava, that's coming. Escalante's is a higher end Mexican restaurant. They've got Chick-fil-A coming, which of course is a wonderful thing for everyone, and lots of other little retail. There's going to be a Methodist hospital outpost in this Texas Heritage Marketplace as well. And you can also expect to see things like fitness centers, gyms, and then little shops. So this is a big win for this area. If I'll link it below, but if you go and you look at this New Quest Properties pamphlet, what they're marketing to other commercial retailers and developers, they're showing how massive the growth is going to be for this area over the next 7 to 10 years. So basically everything up and down the 359 corridor, so on the south side Fulshear all the way to the north side Brookshire, is just going to be loaded with neighborhoods. So growth is coming whether you like it or not, but at least we have meaningful steps towards retail to support the population that is coming. I, for one, am happy to see that all of this expansion is headed out towards the Fulshear direction. Now, I love the green space and all the reserves that are in and around these communities, but whether we like it or not, that expansion is coming. And so for us to be able to have retail infrastructure and better schools out in that area, to me, is only going to further support the strength of the Fulshear community over time. Growing pains are inevitable, but at least it will have the infrastructure and support if you choose to move there. If you're considering a move to the West Houston area, make sure to check the description below. My phone number and email are listed, and I want to be able to connect with you. And if you found value in this video here today, make sure to click the link below and subscribe because we put content like this out every single week. See you soon.